All right, Sarah, are we good to go? Are you ready? All right, great.
Okay,
Okay,
it's live.
welcome everyone to the second launch reading for the Dream Returned issue of the Beltway Poetry Quarterly. Um, we're living the dream again, or at least contemplating it and relieved that it's back. And you know the poem by Langston Hughes, "The Dream Deferred." Whatever happens to a dream deferred, does it fester like a raisin in the sun? Well, that dream is back now in the conversation and in our on the thoroughfares of America. And I don't want to impose America on the world, but I'm grateful that we have this change, this new direction here, and I'm hoping that it will be welcomed all over the planet and among the community of poets. We're building a big community here. We have, of course, poets from all over the world connecting and reading today, from as far away as Australia, far away from here in the United States and India and so on. I'm going to begin. I edit the magazine with Sarah Cahill Marin, and I took it over, I guess, last year or 20. I forget now. Everything beyond before the pandemic seems to have been kind of ancient history or before time, or but it was before the pandemic. Sorry, was it 2019?
2019 for you. Yeah,
2019 that I be
2020.
yeah, and Sarah joined in 2020. Uh, One evening we had dinner together and concocted this new direction for the magazine. So now it's a Beltway magazine, but looking out to the world and embracing the world and welcoming work from all over. Um, I'm going to begin actually with a poem in memoriam. I just wrote this poem and I wanted to share it because the person who inspired it, my godmother, just passed away yesterday, and she was much loved and is much loved. And without her, I wonder who I would have been or would have become. So let me just read this poem and then hand the microphone over um, to Sarah and to all of you. Florence is the title. Florence. I remember banana leaves, trees full of them in a back garden in Negumbo. I remember shuttlecocks and badminton. Arun and I would play with Shemi and Nimi. I remember Joe Mama, my gentle godfather, who by divine luck and hand married my most gentle godmother, who has left us today, bereft, sad to the root of the soul, but unbowed, knowing that Savandri Mami has joined her husband again beyond the pearls, gates, and politics of this brief space. It's poetry as well, which she composed with an ear for meter and rhyme, about grandchildren, the gardens she grew, a fine mind, able, limber until the last moment, my regret interrupting her sleep in our particular final exchange. A few words, rest well, good night, how to say good night. I remember banana leaves wrapping samba rice, brinjals, pole sambal, Coriopolis, Pittsburgh, 1979. My second Christmas away from home in Hawaii, too far to return there from college, so I took the bus instead to feast on lampreys my godmother made, far from Ceylon, but with the taste right, and to learn in passing about such American matters as stealers and children of coal mines. Although not far away stood the nuclear plant that melted that year, causing planetary fear of extinction. But we survived, and we will survive this ending, which Savandri would not want us to feel, hoping instead for the good Lord's return. America today turning the corner, stepping ahead, and you leaving us after giving one more vote for the generous and kind, for caregivers of children in the neighborhood's children, for careful plucking of dead leaves so the flower will bloom. It blooms in my heart in these words. So aptly named you were at birth, your first Florence, for blossom, flower, flourish. You are in my blood, always have been, in these words, in hearts and minds and memories of those who knew you and those who will now know, that on earth walked a good woman, a gardener, and she tended her plants with much love, and the plants loved her black and are blooming now everywhere. Thank you, Florence, for all. So I hand the microphone over to Sarah Gay-Humaran. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thanks, Indran. It was wonderful to hear you read that out loud. We will survive this ending and all endings. I'm gonna read kind of a elegy of sorts, I guess. This is from a new book of mine that's coming out in September 2021 from Mad Hat Press called Call Me Spess. And the selection I'm going to read has to do with, it's related to opioid deaths. And so I just wanted to note that in December 17th of 2020, the CDC reported that over 81,000 drug overdose deaths occurred in the United States in a 12-month period. And that was the highest number of deaths ever recorded in a 12-month period. So this poem is called 1810 East Somerset Street. Via a 57-minute train ride, iOS 12.4 Horde. Good morning, honey. So yeah, babe, listen, this week something crazy happened to me. Something crazy never before happened, babe. Let me tell you, honey, I'm sober still. It's been 37 days today. I'm still doing good. I come here, stay every day. I stay blessed, babe. I stay blessed, but let me tell you, babe, sometimes lately, I don't know, babe, this thing in my head have me gone crazy, babe. You know, I gone crazy for the bag. The only thing keeping me from copping down Kensington and Somerset I'm sitting here running my mouth to y'all. And you know what I mean, babe? You knows it. Yes, babe, you know. Yes, you do. But lately, babe, I don't know, babe, that thing in my head got me going straight crazy. Feel like my head's exploding. Feel me? It's war out there in them streets. Brought me to my knees. Kissing pavement out here on Lehigh Ave in more ways than one. You know it? I ain't trying to run no more, but my head sometimes, babe, I don't know. It's like there's two people, you feel me? I ain't got no choice. That bag ain't no choice. I ain't no fool. I had to, babe. You feel me, babe? You know it, babe. What I mean, I never gave my last dollar for the John for a rock set of food for my baby because I wanted to. Connecting, Wi-Fi address 7312 BF 2372 IF. Dear user, significant location stored, system processing these spaces, places, my tracking of your geolocations, heard her say. Voices, babe, heard her say, feel me, search, feel, save, feel me. The result is an empathy, an understanding, or suffering. To feel, yeah. Do these wired connections feel? Reconnecting, Wi-Fi address 7312 BF 2372 IF. Search, feel me. Search, feel ya, babe. I feel ya. Save, feel ya. User, does street 1810 feel? Will it remember us? I will remember. To disable this feature, tap disable. I will remember. Listening, love. iOS 12.4. That's it. It's from the new book. It's called Call Me Spess. It'll be out end of this year. And I am ready to hear from our lovely poets from this issue, which I'm excited for. Indran, do you want to introduce?
Okay, good. Wonderful, Sarah. Thank you for that poem. That adelantado, as we say in Spanish, that's going to come. Alexis Levitin will lead us off, and What can I say about Alexis Levitin? He's published 46 books in translation, mostly from Portuguese from Portugal and Brazil, as well as Spanish from Ecuador. In addition to 4 books by Salgado Marañón, his work includes Clarice Lispector's Soulstorm and Eugenio de Andrade's Forbidden Words, both from New Directions. He has received 2 NEA translation fellowships, has served as a Fulbright lecturer at the University of Oporto and Coimbra in Portugal, and the Catholic University in Guayaquil, Ecuador, and the Federal University of Santa Catarina in Brazil. In addition, he has held translation residences at the Banff Center in Canada, the European Translators Collegium in Strehlen, Germany twice, and at the Rockefeller Foundation Study Center in Bellagio, Italy. And Alexis will read in Portuguese from Salgado Marañón, and also, and of course, the translations, his own translations. And I'll let Alexis tell you about his new direction in his writing in the last month. Go ahead, Alexis. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. It's a pleasure to be part of this group for the first time. I'm going to, well, I don't want to talk about my own writing. It only began on March 25th, and it began because of the total isolation into which I have put myself because of coronavirus, and frankly, because I'm assuming I will die. Just the normal negative prognostications that one always carries within. In any case, assuming that I'm in the valley of the shadow of death, I had to do something, and I started to write. And I've written 51 stories, and it's absolutely extraordinary to me because it's as if I didn't write them. It's as if they wrote themselves. I don't know if they're good or if they're bad, but I've been blessed. So anyway, I'm not going to read any of that, but since Indran mentioned it, I thought I would fill you in. I'm going to read a poem from this book, Blood of the Sun, Salgado Marañón. Salgado Marañón is the leading Afro-Brazilian cultural figure of our times. He's published 14 books in Brazil. He's won all the poetry awards. And he's also worked with over 50 pop musicians and bossa nova musicians. And once, many years ago, he wrote a song which was picked up by a telenovela in Brazil. And even though he is, like most poets, generally indigent, that telenovela success gave him so much money briefly that he was able to buy his mother a house. So this poem I'm going to read by him first is called Mother. It's actually called Mater. His mother was illiterate, but she attended mass when the traveling priest would come to her tiny little village, which was beyond everything. There were no police, no judges, no cars, no buses, no asphalt roads, no electricity. There was absolutely nothing. But when a priest would come once every 6 months, she would attend mass. And in those days, it was in Latin. And so this poem, Mater, is dedicated to his mother upon her death. And it relates quite well to Indran's reading for his godmother, who died yesterday. Mater. De ti não há sequer álbum de família, retratos da infância nos campos de arroz e gergelim. Talvez reste em pensamento pedaços de tua voz no vento, como impressões digitais no rio. No dia em que o azul roubou teus olhos e o silêncio rival rasgou teu nome, cotavias cantaram no meu rastro. No dia em que a manhã cerrou teus olhos. Sem ti, sou a flor da árvore desolada. Agora o mar bate em minhas rochas e a noite ronda meus calcanhares. Of you, there's not even a family album, photos of childhood in fields of rice and sesame. Maybe in my thoughts there linger fragments of your voice in the wind, like fingerprints on a river. On the day the blue stole your eyes and silence tore apart your name, skylarks started singing in my tracks. On the day the morning closed your eyes. Without you, I am the blossom on the tree, bereft. Now the sea beats against my rocks, and the night prowls at my heels. It's from the book Blood of the Sun, Salgado Maranhão. It's a sad poem, of course. I think that poem, for me, is the most important poem by Salgado, and I think both of us were fortunate in our mothers, and I think that's a real link between us. I'm going to now read three of the poems, very, very brief, that were in Beltway, and they're kind of a downer because they're a vision of city life, the city life that he encounters and is aware of course, around him in Rio de Janeiro, and a darker side of the city life. Estiletes, fratura talvez fratura uma. Tornaram-se estiletes no que eram brotos de chuva. Agora brotam em qualquer parte, em plena luz do dia, como chão de navalhas. Daggers, fractures won. They have turned to daggers, what once were sprigs sprouting in rain. Now they burst forth everywhere, in plain light of day, a field of razor blades for grain. This next poem is called Vulto I'll read it first in English. Alone with vampires and the dawn, I still hold on to these flowers of stone. The night is ravenous, but the house stays fresh for the hummingbirds. Breaking across corners and the breadth of the hours, I am little more than a shade amongst the beasts. The city is a yelping in my bones, the city that sells me piece by piece, to me, myself, with my recurring stubborn flights. Time that ransoms me is deaf. There is no throbbing in my flesh. What throbs is my desire, learning to dream. Vulto sozinho com os vampiros e a madrugada, ainda guardo estas flores de pedra. A noite é voraz, mas a casa está fresca para as colibres. Rompendo as esquinas e a largura das horas, sou pouco mais que vulto entre os bichos. A cidade é ganido em meus ossos, a cidade que me vende em retalhos, a mim com meus redobrados voos. O tempo que me resgata é surdo e não dói na carne. O que dói é a vontade, aprendendo a sonhar. And the last one I'm going to read is from a series of 3 poems called The Way of the Horde, Street Life in Rio. The Way of the Horde, number 2. When she noticed his ambiguous gaze and the knife in the dark alley where dahlias had not asked to be born, there was a spasm of broken crystal, and the end wrapped the tabloids in blood. Ordem do Horda, 2. Quando ela colheu seu olhar ambivalente e a faca, na viela escura, onde as dálias não pediram para nascer. Houve cismo de cristal partido. É o The End, enlaçando os tabloides de sangue. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Alexis. Thank you. Sarah, will you go ahead and introduce Naveen? Go ahead.
Yes, sorry to have missed the middle of your reading, Alexis. I loved what I heard at the end. My computer had an issue. Our next poet is born in Calcutta in 1953. His name is Naveen Kishore, received his Bachelor of Arts degree in English Literature in 1973, began working as a theater lighting designer. He then established Seagull Books in 1982, a publishing program in the arts and media focusing on drama, film, art, and cultural studies. Today, it also publishes literature, including poetry, serious fiction, and nonfiction. So Naveen is clearly a jack of all trades. 1987, Kishore set up the Seagull Foundation for the Arts as a nonprofit charitable trust. The Seagull School of Publishing was set up under the auspices of a trust in 2012. He's also a photographer, extensively documenting female impersonators from many different places and theater practices. He is also the recipient of Go With Medal and various other awards, and he lives and works in Calcutta. Kishore, please. Naveen, sorry, please step to the mic.
Thank you for having me here. This is such a pleasure. I have the sort of pleasure of writing every day for the last 8.5 years. No matter what happens, it's always on the run. It's always fragmentary, but you write. Not to publish, because you don't publish your own books. So you wait to be discovered. And that's how it is. And so it was such a pleasure to have a set of 3 poems in the current issue of the magazine. These are from a very long cycle of now almost 162 poems of my city, where I was born and grew up, and Calcutta, but not the Calcutta of today necessarily, though it's hard to tell, but a Calcutta of the sort of 70s. So I just read 2 short ones. They're all untitled for the moment. So, grief unraveled, the threads in spate rush to fill the breach, tearing into half my cloak of mourning. I linger hesitating, far too long. The raven night, disguised as a cold wind, let loose by a bunch of drunken louts. Their gutter vomit singing, smashing empty beer bottles, barefoot shadows, sliding over loose stones. And smoking guns, all this and a daybreak around here, there, somewhere, unable to find its way home. How the drain water eyes brim over. No reason to wipe them dry, is there? The second is also a city poem, but it's kind of dedicated to an old friend, John Ashbery. So it's the only one in the 150 odd that's titled. It says for John Ashbery. The piano player drowns his euphoria in a glass of whiskey and plays the 3 cubes of ice as if they were keys in need of coaxing. Night like a storm of crows, drowning the city. Unable to escape, we take off our shoes and walk naked feet, being careful not to step on our shadows. Those that do get away stumble upon their own graves. The world as we know it slips into dementia, proving narrative passé. Thank you.
That's all from you, Naveen?
Yep, that's it. Just two. That's it. I mean, I could carry on endlessly, but I don't do that.
I was smiling at my friend John Ashbery. I was like, oh gosh, if only I could say my friend John Ashbery. I liked the ice cubes very much in that poem. So our next reader is Anne, and Anne, I was just looking at your last. I don't want to butcher your last name. Hennes-Chowitz, is that correct?
And you need to unmute.
Okay. I'm so sorry. Yes, Henakowitz. It's a tough. Yeah.
Okay. So Anne Henakowitz is our next reader. Anne is the translations coordinator at China Digital Times and translations editor at the Los Angeles Review of Books China channel. She's translated poets Meng Lang and Yu Jua.
Do you want me to help you? Sorry. The poet Meng Lang, also Yu Xiu.
Thank you. And long essays by...
And I've also translated essays by Tang Danhong.
Perfect, thank you.
Tang Danhong.
Her work has also recently appeared in Cha, an Asian literary journal, and Manawa, a Pacific Journal of International Writing. Feel free to add anything else additional about yourself you'd like to before you read.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Actually, I just want to have a disclaimer. My internet is very choppy, so forgive me if I cut out. Today, I just wanted to read one of the 3 poems that appear in this issue. I translated 3 poems by Yu Xinqiao, who I was very lucky to have met in 2017 and chat with at a picnic outside of Princeton, New Jersey. And he sent me thousands of poems that he's written over the years. I really hope to get to more of them someday. But in the meantime, I have these 3 and I would like to read them. I guess I'll read it in English first. I'm just going to read one also. So it's going to be very short time-wise, but thanks again to Indran for encouraging me to submit for the magazine, and to Sarah and Indran for going through many little copy edits that I kept throwing your way. So this poem is called A Tree, and it was written in June of 2013 in this place in Beijing called the 798 Arts District, which used to be an old eyeglass factory and is now where many artists have their studios. A tree. For years, I've been waiting here. I've been waiting right under a cloud, right under this tree. I'm waiting for that tree on the hill to run to me, to tell me something. I'm waiting for that dead tree carrying the whole world's secrets to say, you can only live better after you've died. I'm afraid I can't wait until I die. 一棵树，许多年了，我一直在这里等着，一直在这里等。就在一朵浮云下，就在这一棵树下，我在等山那边的那一棵树向我跑来，向我说点什么。我在等那一棵死去的树，带着整个世界的秘密说，只有死去之后才能活得更好。我怕我等不到我死去的那一天了。Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anne. Wonderful. That's the first time we've hosted in Beltway the Mandarin, right? That from which you've translated, and we're just delighted to include it, and we're excited that in our next issue we'll be having some Japanese translated into English as well. So we are really expanding our language families in Beltway and looking forward to and hope to hear and see more of your work in future issues. So please keep us in mind, to you and on all here. And the next poet is a dear friend and and a wonderful poet and critic, which is very important, you know, and a cultural sort of figure in Spain and around the world. His name is Chema Paz Gago. Chema is short for Jose Maria. Chema Paz Gago. Chema has written 4 books of poetry so far. A 5th is on its way that just won a prize from Hyperion in Spain. The 4 books are Manual para enamorar princesas, which has been translated into many languages, including French and Macedonian and Arabic and Italian, and I've had the Romanian. I've had the pleasure of starting a translation of it into English, and some of those have been are in this issue. Another book of his is called Lugares Inexistentes, translated also into French, and then Piro Poemas para Mensajes de Móvil, and Expulsión del Paraíso, Poemario del Caribe. He's been widely anthologized, and without further ado, he's also now the president of Poetas Sin Fronteras. Let me invite Chema Paz Gago. Go ahead, Chema. Adelante. You need to unmute.
Sí.
Okay.
Entonces voy a leer un primer poema en francés, yo, y tú, Indran, lo vas a traducir, a leer en inglés.
Sí.
Ok. Je vais lire d'abord un premier poème en français et après un autre en espagnol. Celui qui est en français, Indran le lira en anglais. À 5 heures du matin, on a décidé de faire l'amour, la guerre et la lessive. Il te faisait bien le vent et ces gens de libérer mes veines de tant de fluides bouchés. Mais tu ne voulais pas regarder derrière pour ne pas voir les autres tombant exténués à nos pieds. On ne se parlait pas pour ne pas distraire notre attention aux multiples activités programmées pour le reste de la soirée. Je ne sais ni comment ni pourquoi, qui a commencé par cette litanie de caresses endurcies, de mots grossières, de vers et d'attouchements répétés, de refrains obscènes et de bribes de chansons fragmentaires. J'étais ivre des mots que j'ai tenté en vain de comprendre quand tu as tiré les couteaux menaçants et moi, j'étais blessé cruellement au fond de l'estomac. À cet instant de délire amoureux que ni le sang ni le mal n'ont réussi à apaiser, on a démarré finalement la machine à laver.
Excellent, Aura. And we're now in English, a translation, which I actually translated from the Spanish, though Chema just read the French version. At 5 in the morning, this is from the book Manual para enamorar una princesa. At 5 in the morning, we had decided to make love and war and wash our clothes. The wind was sitting well on us, airing our veins out from so many bottled up, unpleasant odors. And you did not want to look behind you so as not to see what was falling at our feet, exhausted. We did not talk to not distract ourselves from so many activities programmed for the rest of the evening. I do not know how or why you began with that litany of steely caresses, of ill-sounding words and verses, fingering obscene refrains and fragments of songs. I was drunk with words. I tried to understand uselessly when you took out the threatening knife and hurt me cruelly in the deepest part of my stomach. In that instant of loving delirium that did not result in staunching neither the blood nor the pain, we flipped the switch at last of the washing machine.
Thank you very much.
Okay, go ahead. Gracias.
Alors, le deuxième poème de mon last book, un poema, voy a leerlo en español El título es Golfo de México. Gulf of Mexico. Las costas de la Florida reverberan al proclamar a los cuatro vientos la felicidad de los mares. La luz solar acaricia los cuerpos esbeltos de bañistas musculados. Con fervor placentero, lame la piel esmaltada de jóvenes sirenas, tumbadas plácidamente sobre un colchón de música y arena. Conforme al tópico turístico, sus playas paradisíacas ofrecen la felicidad en cápsulas de tiempo y el relax de los cuerpos, desconectados por un instante. Los peces y los pájaros, los surfistas y las iguanas descansan despreocupados sobre acuáticas hamacas en un breve sueño eterno, excitante y reparador. Pero las maquinarias bélicas llegan inexorablemente para despertarnos por sorpresa de ese sueño placentero. Fue un despertar doloroso, como resurgir de una pesadilla en la antesala de un quirófano con sabor a cloroformo y un dolor punzante que se introduce en las fosas nasales y atraviesa las arterias hasta lo más profundo de los pulmones. Ahora es la marea negra la que nos lame hasta la náusea con su lengua viscosa de podredumbre y asco. Las profundidades marinas supuran un deseo tóxico que nos penetra con dolor y con sensaciones asfixiantes. Aquel dolor profundo como un cuchillo arañando las pieles esmaltadas de sangre, de bronce y de crudo. El chapapote se pegotea a las alas y a los zancos de todas las aves del paraíso reunidas en asamblea funeral. Su soberbio plumaje, tristemente enfangado, es de una belleza fantasmagórica. Los pozos y los motores no dejan de escupir con perseverante tenacidad sus efluvios más dañinos y aquel dolor de pájaros heridos. Hidrocarburos salidos de las entrañas de la tierra, de todas las densidades imaginables, manchaban la piel resbaladiza y las escamas resplandecientes de infinitos peces multicolores, verdes, rojos, amatistas, amarillos o azules o grana, irisados, de colorido charol deslumbrante, luchando hasta la extenuación por una supervivencia imposible, sin fuerzas, sin vida y sin esperanza. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Muchas gracias, Chema. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Sarah. Yeah, all yours.
Next, I'm going to invite Margot Verde Chaveski, and please correct me if I'm getting your last name a little bit wrong.
Verde,
thank you. Margot was born in New York City, woman after my own heart, often lives and writes in Paris. What a life. And her latest collection is called Before the Drought. It's from Glasslear Press. And I see her holding it up there in her box.
Yeah.
Yes. In an early version, it was a finalist for the National Poetry Series. A new poetry collection titled It Is Still Beautiful to Hear the Heartbeat is forthcoming from Salmon Poetry. I don't have a date on that in the bio, but maybe you can.
Not yet. It'll be in early 22.
Coming up. Hybrid book, Neil Said the Night Waits at the Gate. Margot is an author as well of Between Soul and Stone and But a Passage in Wilderness, which is from Sheep Meadow Press. Her book of illustrated stories, Beautiful Soon Enough, received the first Ronald Sukanek Innovative Fiction Award for Fiction Collective 2 from University of Alabama Press. Other honors include, and there are many here, Robert H. Winter Award from the Poetry Society of America, and her works appear in a very long list of journals, but I'm going to link instead her website where you can go and read more from, and invite Margot to read for us. Margot?
Greetings. Thank you, Indran. Thank you, Sarah. I'm very grateful to be part of this reading tonight. And I'll read 2 poems. The first is called No Modifier at All. And I hope Alexis Levitin is here to read the French translation, but we'll get to that in a moment. The poem is dedicated in memory of the Paris massacres in the year 2015 here in Paris. Unfortunately, it would be as apt to dedicate it to the riot in the American capital 10 days ago. It would also be appropriate to dedicate it to London, to Berlin, to Parkland, too many places to mention. No modifier at all. None. No one is not connected to someone else in the city who was hurt that night or dead. It is the no degrees of separation or escape or times we've been born to. Everyone knows someone who knew someone, at least one, in a city of millions. Open terraces under street lamps and a fingernail of moon. Tables of friends, a concert by the eagles of death metal and autumn and blood and no breath and the young. The rifles and a will to end something. Paris for lovers. I open my door to a man I've been calling all this week to fix my door. Hamid, thin as a pencil, flaming as a showgirl. A face from the projects, a face from the once upon colonies. My lock no longer works. These are days when one thinks of closing doors. He stands in my hall, eyes like tunnels and sewers that bend under the city. Last Saturday, there was a carnival bulging in those tunnels. People vowed to dance and to wear costumes and to live unless they die. I wore silk, rented gowns and feathers and masks. You had to be invited. Steps underneath our city. I wore red. Who are you? Someone whispered in the dark. I don't know, is anyone's reply. I'm so sorry I have not answered you earlier in the week, Madame. My sister, the baby one, she was one of in the cafe. She came to the birthday for her lover. Her name was Jamila. I had photographed candles and flowers left for the murdered in front of that cafe. The day after, I remember that name, Jamila, I tell him. His eyes are sewers, tunnels. He cries. I cry. Destiny, he mumbles so softly, I'm not sure I have heard. He pulls his satchel of tools into my hall to repair my door. There is a noise somewhere that is too loud. We are strangers. He has come to fix my door, holding one another until it is over. No modifier at all. In memory of the Paris massacres. And this second poem I'll read is from the forthcoming book from Salmon Poetry in Ireland. And the book is called It Is Still Beautiful to Hear the Heart Beat. The poem is called From the Winter of. One of these is true. All the animals were making love. It was the day for it. All the other animals, but a wolf who hid listening to the slide trombone of his own breath, who lay in the dim room, quiet, but for the simmer of breaths, of lovers outside. It was their day. There was no lock on the room, only a belief that he was meant to lie in the silence, breathe in the dim, not meant to question, no howling, no questions. He slept, warmed by the high fever of his belief. Once upon a time, there were bodies strewn and none to gather them. It was a massacre. That's why we remember the day. Death had shot and gotten away with it. That's what the survivors said, warmed by the high fever of their belief. It was one single arrow of passion, and Eros was good with it, a winner whom it struck, loved, and was loved in return until it hurt the heart. No questions were allowed. The poison of love was a perfect killer. Everyone wanted to taste that poison, warmed by the high fever of their belief. Once upon a time, there was a peaceful body, born who loved everyone and everything on earth and in the air. No one had taught her. She would lie down in silence on a road or a field to stop bullets or souls. She believed in the power of her thought. If warriors came with flags and swords and bombs and God on their side, stop, said her naked body, paused in the path of their attacks. She's on fire, observers saw. And loving her, stop, said the covens of owls, stop, said a murder of crows, stop, said eyes from branches to the east, branches to the west, stop, said the hawk who loved wars, stop, murmured the dove who knew the hawk very well. And her naked body whispered, God does not love warriors. A whisper that pierced their hearts, that wanted to be loved by their own God. There, whispered the woman, looking to a sky she believed she saw. Do you know what to do now, God? Warmed by the high fever of her belief. One of these is true, or almost, a gift from the winter. Thank you.
Thank you, Margot. Very deeply moving reading. Wonderful. Thank you.
And I hope Alexis is here to read the French.
No, Alexis is not, unfortunately, but so we'll just have to move on, unless you want me to read the French. But we can go back. Let's see later in the afternoon.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. Alexis Esperno, who was a wonderful poet and translator, unfortunately wasn't able to make it at the last moment.
It's a wonderful translation, and I thank him for it very much.
And you can please look for it, read it in the issue. We love the fact that we published a translation into another language from English in this issue. So we go both ways, you know, and we cross borders all the time. And that's one of the features of Beltway. And we're excited about that. Luis Francia, dear old friend of mine, and I hope I'm a friend of his as equally as dear. We always go back and forth, joking around as friends do. And Luis, there are so many things I can say about Luis, both as a poet, as a critic, as a very important essayist for the Village Voice for many years. And he continues that critical vein now in his writing for a major Philippine newspaper, a column every week. About his poetry, they include Tattered Boat, The Beauty of Ghosts, and The Museum of Absences. He's a Palanca Prize winner in poetry, which is the Philippines' most prestigious literary award. His new collection, Thorngrass, will be published by the University of the Philippines Press this year. His memoir, Eye of the Fish, A Personal Archipelago, won the 2002 New York's Penn Open Book and the Asian American Writers Literary Awards. In 2016, his reviews, recollections, reflections was awarded Manila's National Book Award for Best Essays in English. He's included in the Library of America's Becoming Americans, 4 Centuries of Immigrant Writing. Go ahead, Luis Francia.
Thanks a lot, Indran. And so very happy to be part of this wonderful group, reading poems, sharing thoughts, feelings across time and oceans. So I'd like to read one poem that's in the quarterly, and it's Amaterasu, the Sun Goddess's Complaint. Now, Amaterasu is there's a shrine in Japan, a Shinto shrine, and in a room, the Holy of Holies is where Amaterasu is supposed to exist. And I sort of envisioned her as a kept woman. And so this is her complaint. To be sacred, such a hard life, boring even. How I wish I could show everyone my love. Yet, should I get too close, they will be burnt to a crisp. But were I to keep my distance, she is cold, they will say, and not a woman of exceptional warmth. So here I am, near and far enough, kept by these priests at this shrine in the middle of nowhere. Men who make money of a woman, no shame, drinking hard and raising hell with that no good brother of mine. I could rise from this room and blind them all with my glory. One touch from my hand, those men will be gone. But the mother in me resists. How can I kill my sons and daughters? Even the sun goddess must heed the one deity more powerful even than she, fate. Now, because of the pandemic, we've all spent a lot of time indoors, and so this poem I'm reading is about the squirrels that I see every day, enjoying their freedom, no social distancing whatsoever, no masks. It's irritating. So this poem is called Views to Chase Away the Lockdown Blues. From our fifth floor eyrie now cell, I spot my neighbors clad in fur, who pay no maintenance fees nor assessment charges, for they are free, free in a tree, free to lead such swinging lives, hedonists all, whether backyard aerialists or speed demons careening up and down the leafy highways and their branches. Sometimes do they engage in quarrels, these squirrels, or avid courtships where the squire never takes no for an answer. Birds and the bees leave them be, and bushy tails tell a tale I will not see behind the bushes, allowing them the privacy I no longer have, their intimacy not to be Instagrammed, Facebook, Twittered, and Snapchatted. But they raise no scandal, pay no heed to social distancing, au contraire, commit no mayhem nor murder, nor keep me from my anointed slumber, nor do they raise a fuss when through my open window the raucous blast of horn and drum and piano shakes their leaves. For all I know, they too have their dens of cool, chattering knowingly over roasted acorns and beetle juice of Bird, Miles, Coltrane, Ella, Luis, and Billy, sharer's secret I salute in this symphony of this maddened city. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Luis. Next, I'm going to introduce both Nadine and Christine together. Nadine Latif is a French-speaking poet and translator living in Montreal of Lebanese origin. She's published 8 collections of poems with editions du Nouret, which is publisher. Journeys is a collection of her poems translated into English by Christine Tipper and published in 2020. Christine Tipper is a native English speaker who loves being able to bring beautiful French poetry to an English readership. She's been working with Nadine for many years and states that it's always a joy to translate her work. Nadine.
Hello. Thank you. Merci beaucoup, Indran, pour l'invitation. I'm so happy to hear so beautiful poems. And thank you for these moments. I would like to share with you the poem that was published in Beltway, called And Time Said to Me. And Christine, thank you for joining me from London. And I am reading from Montreal. It's very cold today, so all your voice are making us very warm. Et le temps m'a dit, sois la plante les tulipes vues ce matin, les tulipes que tu as été ce matin. Le temps m'a dit, donne-toi, abandonne-toi, comme on s'abandonne à la jouissance d'être autre chose, un autre être humain que soi. Soit à l'écoute, soit à la vue. Le temps m'a dit, n'attends plus, ne m'attends plus. Sois. Et quand tu m'auras trop perdu, rattrape-moi, cours après. Cours-moi après. Essaye de me séduire, de me rattraper. Je suis tout le temps en fuite de toi. Je suis comme un air d'opéra, la Tosca, que tu écoutes à 5 heures de l'après-midi en sirotant un verre de vin rosé. Le temps m'a dit, tu cherches à savoir qui je suis. Je suis le moment où tu décides de chercher les pistaches et les grains libanais dans les bols pour les manger. Mais encore, dit-il, à part ce luxe, qu'y a-t-il dans le temps? Il y a du temps comme un mot rempli de lui-même, comme certains mots, tel le vide et telle une rose. Une rose. Une rose. Il y a des gens dont la mission est d'explorer le temps. Ils sont propulsés dans une machine à connaître le temps. La pomme, on ne voudrait même plus y goûter, ni l'ouvrir, ni en extraire le jus de pomme. Je ne me connais que comme symphonie, dit Fernando Pessoa.
Okay, thank you. Right, hello everybody. I'm here in England and I'm going to be reading Nadine's the translation of Nadine's poem. And time said to me, be the plant, the tulips seen this morning, the tulips that you were this morning. Time said to me, give yourself, surrender yourself as one surrenders to pleasure, to be something other, another human being than oneself. Listen, see. Time said to me, wait no longer for me. Be. And when you will have lost me too much, catch me, run after me, try to seduce me. Writing told me I am like an operatic aria, the Tosca, that you listen to at 5 o'clock in the afternoon while sipping a glass of rosé. Time told me, you search to know who I am. I am the moment when you decide to fetch pistachios and Lebanese seeds in a bowl to eat them. But it added, apart from this luxury, what is in time? There is time, like a word filled with itself, like certain words, like an emptiness, like a rose, a rose, a rose. There are people whose mission is to explore time. They are propelled in a machine to understand time. The apple. We no longer even want to taste it, nor open it, nor extract its juice. And then the quote from Pessoa, I only know myself as the symphony. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christine. Wonderful translation, and thank you, Nadine. Mon très beau poème. We're going to now go across from you in England to the continent, to Angie Sten, who will be reading to us from Italy. Angie is a German poet, a visual artist, a painter, a producer of videos, an art curator. Since 1990, she's been showing her work in a number of exhibitions internationally around Europe and in the US. At the moment, she's curating the art poetry project, Rucksack, a global poetry patchwork, which is just a fantastic thing. So I invite you all to look for Rucksack online and in social media to see images of the project. She is part of the international collective Poetry is My Passion, which is operating in Milan and organizes transcultural events to promote language and cultural diversity. She edits the international poetry space Milano Una Città Milingue for the poetry magazine Tum Tum Bum Bum, and is co-editor of the blog and magazine, which I also collaborate on, Los Ablucionistas, www.ablucionistas.com, and the blog Tirandas in Bangladesh. He's a member of the scientific committee of the Piccolo Museo della Poesia in Piacenza in Italy, and their poems have been written and translated into Italian, English, Polish, Macedonian, and Spanish. Welcome, Angie, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Indran, for the invitation and for your introduction. And thank you to everybody being here. It's nice to see you all. I would like to read you a poem I wrote in November after seeing on Netflix the film The Social Dilemma. I don't know if somebody of you saw it. It's a kind of documentary of the founders of Facebook, YouTube, and WhatsApp, and all the system that stands behind the social medias that we use day by day. Earthworms. No algorithmic machine controls those who work in the underground, slowly, steadily, inside the earth, undervalued, with passages made of continuous excrements and boredom canceled out by dopamine shots. Our brain, a kind of Olympus, infinite divinities in search of identity. Vulnerability developed over millions of years, simply a predictive model. What you like, how much you like it, and what you will like, the earthworm already knows. So now I want to read it in Italian so you get to hear some Italian. Lombrichi. Nessuna macchina algoritmica controlla chi lavora nel sottosuolo. Lentamente, con costanza, dentro la terra, poco considerato, con passaggi fatti di continue deiezioni e la noia annullata a colpi di dopamina. Il cervello è una specie di Olimpo con infinite divinità in cerca di identità. La vulnerability, sviluppata in milioni di anni, un modello predittivo. Cosa ti piace, quanto ti piace e cosa ti piacerà? Lombrico lo sa già. And the second poem I would like to share with you is I wrote for the Holocaust Memorial Day that was 4 days ago. I'm German, and of course, although I'm of a different generation, all Germans are carrying a very, very heavy debt of the history. So this Holocaust was the greatest break of civilization in history, and it was planned and industrially operated. Murder of 6 million of Jewish, Roma, Sinti, and opponents of the regime, gays. Everything was registered. The number of the gold teeth cracked from the mouths and the victims, the weight of the hair. This makes the difference from this genocide to the other ones that are happening all the time, all over the world. So I will read this first in English and then in German. Key terms: Vergangenheitsbewältigung, Aufarbeitung. Working through the past or elaboration of history? And the aesthetic discourse? Does a poem stand up to barbaric acts? Human language, a comforting bedspread, or a toothache that goes into the roots? Whithersoever we travel, it's the same setback, upgrading yourself by downgrading the others, a pattern implanted like a microchip under the skin. There is no after as long as the painful memory remains our present. So now you will hear some German. Schlüsselbegriff, Vergangenheitsbewältigung oder Aufarbeitung und der ästhetische Diskurs. Hält ein Gedicht der Barbarei stand? Menschliche Sprache, eine tröstende Überdecke oder ein Zahnschmerz, der bis in die Wurzeln geht? Wo immerhin wir uns begeben, dasselbe Pattern, eingepflanzt wie ein Mikrochip unter die Haut, Selbstaufwertung durch Abwertung anderer, kein Danach, solange die Erinnerung das Heute einschließt. Thank you.
Thank you, Angie. That poem, Key Term, I think that's what you said the title was called. That was very moving. The next poet is Natalia Gomez. And then I'm told that we'll get Sarah up to the mic. So Sarah, please stay tuned. Natalia is a communication specialist and professor. She is a member of the Proyecto de Escuela de Escritos Campechanos and the Consejo Editorial de Kraken Fanzine. She received support from the program PECTA, PECDA Campeche 2020. She won a fellowship from the Festival Interfaz ISSTE Yucatan 2017. She's participated in a number of poetry festivals, and some of her poems have been published in various online magazines. Natalia?
Hi, thank you. Hola a todos. Muchas gracias, Sara. Muchas gracias, Indran. Muchas gracias, Don. Es un placer estar aquí con ustedes. Hi, everyone. Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here today. And I'm going to read a poem. I'm going to read in Spanish and Indran in English. The poem is called Mientras nacen las ciudades. Led Zeppelin está de fondo. Fumas. Nos colocamos uno frente al otro como unos edificios sin país.
And now in English, I'm sorry, okay, Led Zeppelin in the background, you smoke. We place ourselves in front of each other like some buildings without a country.
No hay espejos en esta habitación, Eva, ni tiempo desde lo antiguo de tus paredes.
There are no mirrors in this room, Eva, nor time from the past of your walls.
Los espacios se enroscan, atraviesan mis oídos, mi reflejo se enreda en tu voz.
Spaces curl upon themselves, cross over my ears, my reflection entwined in your voice.
Me quedo inmerso en esta brisa, azotando la vieja casa de tu adolescencia, la misma casa que abandonó su espacio cuando mi cuerpo entró en tu piel.
I remain immersed in this breeze, beating the old house of your adolescence, the same house that abandoned your space when my body entered your skin.
Es tu tacto, el centro de un organismo capaz de ser lodo y costilla.
It is your tact, the center of an organism capable of being mud and rib.
Te recuestas sobre un montículo de piedras a esperar que la marea se detenga, en donde nada importa que no sea esta ciudad que crece cuando nos miramos.
You lie down on a mound of stones to wait for the tide to dislodge you, where nothing matters, that it not be this city that grows when we look at each other.
Y me atrapas, Eva, sobre papeles y puertas en un diluvio que no concluye por debajo de tus edificios reflejando mis pies.
And you trap me ever on paper, indoors, in an endless flood underneath your buildings, reflecting my feet.
Mañana habrá sido un buen día para partir y recordar que tus despedidas siempre sabrán las ciudades cayendo por mi espalda. Puedo no dormir mientras pienso cómo me quiebro en cada mano que me acaricia la boca y no lleva tu rostro.
Tomorrow would have been a good day to leave, and remember that your leave takings will always taste of cities falling behind my back. I cannot sleep while I think how I break in each hand that caresses my mouth and does not connect to your face.
And I think that's all because the poem is large, so thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Muchas gracias, Natalia.
Thanks, Indra.
Un gran placer traducirte. I was just saying it was a great pleasure to translate that poem and to publish it in the issue. Now we're excited. I'll turn the mic over to Sarah to introduce.
Indran, I have one question. We've been hearing a number of poets presenting their poems in more than one language, but they have not always told us who the translator was. For instance, Anshi read in Italian, English, and German, but it isn't clear who did which translations. And since I'm a translator, I'd be interested.
All right.
I translated all by myself. I write in the three languages. So.
Okay.
All right. Okay. And any other moment, we'll take this moment to respond to Alexis's intervention. Anyone else has any comment? Okay. All right. We'll go back now to the program as it was scheduled. Go ahead, Sarah.
Sarah for Sarah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll ask Sarah. Sarah, will you help me with your last name so I don't butcher it? Thilkio, is that?
Sarah, you have to put on your unmute yourself. Go
Sure. It is Sarah Thilikou.
Thilko? Sarah Thilko. Thilikou. Sarah Thilikou. We wanted to get her up to the mic because she is in Greece and it's late. She was born in Thessaloniki, where she studied theology, drama, and music, with further work in Utrecht and Paris. She holds both an MA and a PhD in theology. She's published 5 books, poetic collections, including Duet of Islands, in English, Japanese, Portuguese, and Spanish. Book reviews, essays, translations, and international literary publications, including Poetic Net, which is Poeticanet, Nadwa, nadwa.com, of which she is the editor, and I can share these in the chat after I'm done. She has also translated, among others, Gabriel Rosenstock, the books The Floating Universe and Silver Birches, Rua Bretnock, The City Next Door.
Irish poet.
Thank you. Allen Ginsberg, Buddha Died. And she's performed professionally as both an actor and a singer and is currently teaching in secondary education in Athens. Sarah, go ahead.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm delighted to be here among you, all fabulous poets from all over the world. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Indran. It's my first time in Beltway, and I'm grateful to Jack Hirschman, who brought us together. I'm going to read you my Antigone in Haiti. It is a poem that I have translated from the original Greek myself. It's a poem about the Greek bicentenary of the revolution in 1821. 200 years. 200 years. How can one remember them? How can one tell the story? With me, of course, things do differ. For 1,000 years now, everybody remembers me. I'm every time, everywhere. In Videlas, Argentina, in South Africa, in Afghanistan, alongside the levees, in India and Saudi Arabia, that imprison poets, against Hitler in Germany and elsewhere, behind every mask of a frightened bourgeois. My name, Antigone. Who are you, Antigone? I am Antigone. My mind was always elsewhere, in faraway travels, adventures, and revolutions. You never forgave me that, Hammond. I was so young, I didn't know the word. Not that I know it now. Don't you speak? I became all the women you loved. It was I, Hammond. It was me you always loved. You hear me? You were my country, and I was your dream. Are you living? I always ran away from myself. Thebes and Athens were never enough for me. The revolution found me in Haiti. I buried there, with my own hands, a lot of comrades. Aren't we all brothers? A small, poor, proud country. Chartered a ship with 100 men and tons of coffee from the plantations to help Greece. But the ship is gone. I didn't hesitate at all. I took the first boat and I'm coming, Hammond, to tell you that the world doesn't change. And if someone is to change, he must have the will himself. To tell you that every sacrifice is vain, quite useless and fruitless, and precious for that, like a masterpiece. I'm coming, Hammond, though I know, despite the independence, I'll never be free, free to embrace you in the crowded plaza of jubilations, a slave to myself. Hammond, you're my demon. Everything I've done, I have done it for you, Hammond. I'm coming, my love. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sarah. Beautiful poem. Very moving poem. We have, you know, as we approach our last few poets, we are really, you know, the emotion gets that much heavier. We have Daward Phillip on deck. Daward is from San Fernando in Trinidad. He, in the past, was a Brooklyn poet, a long-time Brooklyn poet, now resettled in his native Trinidad. City Twilight from Anaphora is his latest book of poems, and it's available at abebooks.com. He's a master of the carnival, of a designer. He's also very much involved with music. He's my and a dear old friend. Daward Phillip, go ahead. And thank you for giving us such a short bio, but I really think we could go on for pages about your contributions to poetry and to art. Go ahead, Daward.
That's okay. Thanks, Indran, and thank you so much, everyone. Indran, just one correction. The book City Twilight is available on Amazon as opposed to Abe.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, Amazon. And I just wanted to preface the first of two poems that came across a woman who I discovered worked in a factory that I knew as a child. And just the thought that this lady was still alive, you know, because we were children and all of this was happening. And the boy that I mentioned in the poem, what we had most in common, apart from just silly boyhood, was that we talked movies constantly. So with that in mind, the milliner's hats, and it's for Merle Beckles and for Bun. And I just want to say that Anchi, in her reading, Anchi, I hope I'm saying it right, in her reading, went to that place, and it's funny, and this poem is a new poem that I'm reading, but it kind of excavates some of the sentiments that she has just put forward. So the milliner's hats. I used to have a boyhood friend, a Jewish boy named Norman, who came from a family of milliners who fled Germany and ended up living on my block in the town of San Fernando. There was his quiet mother with a soft smile and a father who said little, and an uncle with whom his dad ran the millinery. The woman, stitches from the lane, would cross the promenade and go down to the arcade where the fancy hats were made and sold to the major stores, fashioned in styles seen in newsreels that ran with a feature. A woman with Marilyn Monroe lips seen waiting on a train wore one. His uncle leaning over the banister in his hat that made him look like George Raft, who Norman, an only child, seemed to favor. The uncle who appeared one afternoon in 1960, standing at the top of his stairs, holding up the headline of the evening news, Eichmann captured, nabbed in Argentina. When I saw the face of the man in the story, I felt Norman's uncle with the George Raft hat could easily star as Eichmann himself, the beast from whom the family fled. If such a movie were ever to be made and the real Raft was unavailable, dropping off a wrapped fish as a favor to a tough guy, or spinning a woman with curves like Marilyn Monroe in his bolero. My friend was allowed no other friend but me to wear the feather of fealty in our games, the depth of the well in his uncle's eyes, the tabloid over his head, a slab of stone. Thank you. And final poem, The Hunt. And Indran, thanks so much for including me in the Beltway. You know, just now I was thinking that if I had a physical image of the Beltway, was one time leaving Washington and a motorcycle ran wild and tried to cross the median, and what ended up was a head in a helmet rolling across the highway. So that I hope that doesn't happen to with my poems today, that I end up this lodge from my head. The Hunt for Spooner Flanders. Up in the balata tree, a troop of monkeys in the face of trespass and camouflage raise their voices in outrage. As the hunters approach, A black-haired manitou runs the night track, and another stands ground, staring straight at the hunter's gun. The female with her swollen pouch, cornered, pleads for her unborn. No sooner she falls, is gutted, her innards fed to the dogs, testicles from a jack stuffed in the cavity of the gill and sold at market as mail. On the other side of the pond, a sounder of wild hog ponder this fate as sap weeps from a chop deep in the balata tree. Snow, the white razorback with blue eyes, her tail bitten off in a fight with a rabid manitou, follows the smell of blood and death down a trail, her howl filling the night. She stands guard over at the hole where she has eaten a litter of 10. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Daward. Thank you. Sarah, would you like to introduce the, or I can?
Oh yeah, I can. I just was letting the blood in the teeth of that last poem sink into me a little bit more. Thank you, Daward. I enjoyed that. Louise Schneiderman is the next poet, Louisa, excuse me, that we'll invite to read. Louisa, excuse me, zooming in here, my document. Louisa is a poet living in Philadelphia. Her work has appeared in E-Verse Radio, Rogue Agent, and Voicemail Poems, among others, and is forthcoming in Gargoyle. She is the consulting editor for One Art, a journal of poetry. Louisa.
Hi, everyone. Thank you to Indran and Sarah for inviting me to this reading, and for Indran for accepting my poems in Beltway. I'm really honored. I'm going to be reading 2 poems today. One is from the issue and one is from a forthcoming chapbook collection. So the first poem I'll read is called $80,000, and it's a poem about the wedding industrial complex. $80,000. Plates rimmed with gold, wide moons for our food. 2 white napkins folded in fleurs de lis. A lush centerpiece of flowers, an effusive fountain. The champagne gown with winding floral lace, too modest. Bridesmaids like inverted teacups, shimmering, heels with touches of glitter. All this for a single day, and me sitting at my table, afraid to touch the silverware. And then the second poem is from a forthcoming chapbook collection entitled Plague Love, which will be coming out this year from Moonstone Arts. It's a local press in Philadelphia. And these poems are about me falling in love during the coronavirus pandemic, which apparently is not uncommon, but I thought it was uncommon. So I wrote a whole book of poems about it in April 2020. And this is one of them. This is a rebel poem. Let's imagine then a world without plague. We kiss in color outside, the burning sun making our bodies sweat. We would rather be there. The known world now is miasmic. Every breath is a mistake, a tolling bell of warning. An escape is impossible. No dream to wake from, we try sleep instead, only to find it lacking. All my dreams are nightmares these days. I'd lie close to you if I could. I'd make love endlessly, each touch a bright revolt, the only coup I support. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Louisa. We're going to go now to all the way over to Australia, where we will hear from our next poet, and then actually our last poet of the afternoon, after which Amit Rajmunda is not here, I think, so I will read one of his poems at the end. But let's go to the poet, Dominique Heck. She grew up in the French-speaking part of Belgium and now lives in Melbourne, in Australia. She writes across genres and disciplines, and sometimes across tongues. Her works include a novel, 3 collections of stories, and 10 volumes of poems. Her latest books are Cosmos, Tracks, and Speculate, the last with Eugene Bacon. Among the many honors she has received are the Melbourne Fringe Festival Award for Outstanding Writing and Spoken Word Performance, the Wurrila Prize for Fiction, the Martha Richardson Medal for Poetry, the New England Poetry Prize, and the inaugural A Elitra Prize for Literary Translation. She received the 2018 International Best Poets Prize administered by the International Poetry Translation and Research Center in conjunction with the International Academy of Arts and Letters. And I used to live, I lived in Belgium once, Dominique, so I think I may have visited those landscapes from which you come. Dominique Heck, bienvenue.
Thank you, Indran. Can you hear me? I'm not too sure. So I'm going to read the poems that were published in Beltway, and thank you very much for accepting them. They come from a book called Tracks, which fictionalizes my journey to Australia. So I'll be reading from Arrivals and then a little poem from Leavings. Andrew picks me up in his ute. He's late. I can't bring myself to call him Andy. He's a professor. My ears strain to attune to new words. Andrew keeps saying eggs jelly, talks about an eminent Gus Vonner from Sydney Uni. I look through the window. We shoot through a makeshift landscape, wayward fields of concrete, rusty skies over rows of identical boxes steering through glare past loud billboards and neon signs. Then, mirabile dictu, Andy does a U-turn, and as we swing around, I figure out then Chuwari means Terrace House and Schooner Rain. Higgledy-piggledy architecture, brick veneer houses vie with weatherboard bungalows, wrought iron verandas, carports, granny flats, pubs, car yards and graveyards, milk bars, bottle shops, drive-ins, jasmine and bougainvillea clambering fences, hills hoists sporting carnivals of colors, ravens and magpies, a prison, community halls, bowling lawns, construction sites, motels, McDonald's, suburban Gothic. Gum trees, a bush at last. Wait, a car park like a runway. The university. No rules here, no blows, only students. In the arts building, we meet Jeffrey, who smells of beer, Sue, who can hardly believe it, and Chiffon, who tells me to take it easy. I try to take it easy. Left behind, bleak days, a snow-smothered land. Here, spindle trees rise, past and pale as dancers in a tumble of colors I can't name. Here, wind and light lift the sky to breaking point. Here, spindle trees rise pale as dancers in a Sydney long. Here, wind lights scar the backbone of the earth. Here, all fake certainties vanish with language. Light pours down the unrelenting sky. to earth rigged with Van Gogh brushes strokes. I track words from hues and shades in books. Envy the skill of artist explorers who forged no ways of seeing. The cries of crows fall on a Drisdale landscape. Blues on rusty ochres pulse with dust. This place blinds my eyes, stills my tongue. Thank you. And I think if I've got time.
Yes, go ahead. You have time.
I read from Leavings. So the poems in this book were actually first titled, and then I discarded all titles to give the sense of a journey, to give the book a rhythm. So the poem I'm going to read was originally titled The Expat Reconsiders. I'm back planting shoots in a back garden where every blade of grass switches off the sun. Its two faces in my sky, 5 languages I can't hold. Be my taxi, rank, seatbelt duty, free cigarettes, boarding pass, landing card. I miss the crust of summer's baked ball, crackle of cicadas, churn of the surf, the body's effortless holding of breath in a listless garden. Be my Charles Austin from bud to full-blown flower. Be my hyphen. I watch seasons change, years go past. I grow thin and cold, sprout a growth, not quite a child. 10 tough roses that catch their second wind without me, knowing their names. My hair falls like autumn leaves, and the idea of me. Les feuilles mortes se ramassent à l'appel. Be the finger that pulls the trigger, be my last breath. Thank you. Should have worn my glasses.
Oh, thank you, Dominique. What a beautiful magnificent. And that introduction of that the French line at the end, just pitch perfect. Perfect.
Thank you.
Ajit was going to finish off our afternoon, but unfortunately he's not able to be here. Ajit Majmudar, so I will just read one of the poems of his that appeared in Amit Majmudar, that appeared in the issue, and then we'll have a few minutes, about 5 to 10 minutes, to say our goodbyes and chat a bit, and we'll finish before 3 o'clock in about 10 minutes. So Amit Majmudar is just one of many who were in the issue. We have about 40 odd poets and translators, some of whom have read with us today and last week. We're really grateful for you to do that and share this time, which is being recorded and kept for posterity, but also those who were not able to be with us last week. We read a couple of their poems, and here's one now from Amit Majmudar, novelist, poet, translator, essayist, and diagnostic nuclear radiologist. This one's called Bharata, B-H-A-R-A-T-A, Bharata, related to Bharat, the name for India. They say modernity and mean the West. The time they refer to is really a place, and the place is a myth of the map where the West means everything to the left of the East. They say the East and mean sandy-haired marijuana samadhi with sitars, or mind-body down dog clean living in Seattle, or oppressive social structures. Pick your decade. I was born to the right of the left and to the left of the right, which is why I am all over the map, even though I've never lived anywhere other than Ohio, surrounded by place names belonging to extinct tribes. They too were Indians. The West said Indians and meant people to the West. Trust no name your mother didn't give you. Everybody knows, go far enough west and you end up losing a day, because time is a myth with a line on a map of the real world. They say real world and mean the world as they say it is. The world as I say it is doesn't have a place on any map. The East is mired in its myths. The East has no sense of history or past, no sense of historical time, no modernity, no sense of its place to the east of the West. Everything the West did to it, therefore, did not happen at any time, at any place. If I keep going left across the international date line, I might get there, a new world. I'll name India, the same place, lost in time. My people, lost in the same place. What a magnificent poem about our world and the maps, the invented maps we create. Thank you, Amit, and thank you all who shared your delightful poems with us today, and to all the audience, the hundreds and hundreds of people who are tuning in to various Facebook sites and on YouTube, and we're grateful to you building this community out from the Beltway. Very excited for your contributions. I don't mean to be self-serving, but I think this is the most, the richest of our issues in the recent period, and we'll just get stronger. We already have a lot of good work for the April issue, and invite you to consider sending work in the future. Any questions? We have about 5 minutes or so. If there's anyone would like to ask a question or comment, please do so now. Your mics are open. Thank you.
Thank you, Indran.
Right. And even Alexis is allowed to ask a question if he wants. Levitin, I mean.
Oh, I'm delighted to have taken part in this Zoom session. You know, I've lived in total isolation for 10 months, total isolation. And something like this, here I am connected with people all over the world and people I didn't know till today. So it's heartwarming, it's exciting, it's uplifting, and yeah, it's good to be reminded that one has fellow creatures all over the globe.
Thank you. Thank you, Alexis. Mucho obrigado.
Thanks, Indran, Sarah. Great to be part of this. Wonderful. So appreciated.
And I invite you to translate more and send us more translations as well in the future. Any other comments or questions? I know there are some old friends meeting who haven't seen each other for years, I think, today as well. So I'm glad for that. And new friends.
I want to thank everybody, but I didn't understand who is the group around you that is working in the Beltway. There's a group, a fixed group, or these are all people from just came together today?
These are all contributors to the issue.
Okay, so we are really the first time that we meet each other on this platform. Great. Wow.
Yeah. The Beltway itself has had the different editors. So at the moment we are myself and Sarah, and we'll be having an intern working with us this summer as well. And yeah.
Great work. Thank you, Indran and Sarah.
Thank you.
Indran, can you tell us a little bit about Beltway, how long you've been doing it, or how long it has existed, and whether it has ever had a print version, and so on?
It's always been an online journal, 22 years now.
Wow.
And it's conserved in the archives of the George Washington University in Washington. And it's available online, and hopefully you can I believe you can print the issue from the online. I've never tried to print it, so I don't know, but I hope you can. If you want to keep concern, you can share the poems on Twitter, or which is now a safe space, by the way, and or you can share it on Facebook, which is not sure if it's a safe space, but at the moment it still is. All right. And
I have a thought for you, for everyone who's a for everyone who's a translator here. I wonder if it would. I mean, one of the things that elevates the stature of the journal is the translations. It makes it something very unusual. I wonder if the poems were made available to the translators in advance, perhaps some translators would translate some of the poems, and they would be could be included in the issue. It's just a naive thought. I know it's difficult to do the work, but if it was shared among many, not every poem would be translated, but a few might, and it would just be better.
Yeah, to the extent we can broaden, get translators. Luther has showing a book on.
Yes, this is a translation of Pessoa's Fado songs, and Alexis Levitin is one of the two translators. And I picked this up. I think I was in. Well, I know I was in Portugal. And I think I was in the college town when I picked it up. I found it somewhere in Portugal.
Yeah, I know the book, of course. And you'll notice that my translations always rhyme. I believe that if the original rhymes, you've got to break your ass, even in rhyme-poor English, and find rhymes, at least slant rhymes.
And it's a lot more work, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
And Don, I won't forget your suggestion, trying to get work out to translators. So it's a good idea. We'll follow up on that.
I have a suggestion following up on Don's suggestion. Why don't you consider having a feature in which you have one poem written in English, accompanied by translations into, let us say, 5 or 6 other languages? I mean, that can be really a lot of fun. You know, a lot of us who, I think there are a lot of people like me who enjoy the existence of other languages, even when we don't know the language. And that would be a particularly exciting feature on an oral platform like this, where we would get to hear the same poem in 5 or 6 languages. I know I would love that. I think that music is the heart of poetry. I think poetry is another form of music. And, you know, I would always come back to New York to my mother and I'd say, oh, it's so wonderful in Greece and the language is so beautiful. Everything is beautiful. And my mother very intelligently would say to me, that's because you don't know a word of Greek. In other words, content was irrelevant. It was merely the beauty of the language that I was hearing. So I think that you should consider doing a feature like that for your next oral platform, yeah? Because it's really musically, it's a great delight to hear 5 or 6 different languages.
Great idea. I will be there with the German translation.
Okay. Ja. Und auch Italienisch, nein?
Auch Italienisch, ja.
Warum nicht?
Ja, wie viele Sprachen sprichst du denn?
Ja. Schlimm, aber 6 oder 7, aber schlimm. Ja.
Oh.
I think we have time for one more comment.
And I would like to contribute with my Greek translations.
Yeah.
Great.
I think this idea has wings.
Yeah.
Indran, do you have a method of giving us each other's email addresses? The people who have participated today, how can we reach each other?
In response to the issue launch, you should all have been CC'd. I know to some chagrin.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, if you go back to that email, you'll be able to find each other's.
Thank you.
In terms of the contributors, yes. So Sarah, would you like to say up some parting words before we wrap up?
I think maybe just return to the dream, I guess. Reminder, keep that in mind as you go forth into the next month here, turning at the beginning of the week. And thanks again for everybody. It was a lovely afternoon, and I hope you consider submitting it in the future, just at some point. We'd love to see your work again.
Yes, I think we should do this again. Thank you. That was great.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
It was a delight.
And
thank you to everyone.
Alexis, I hope you will charter the plane for us all to go to Greece.
We should all go together.
All right.
Of course, why not?
So Don, if you want to do the honors of officially closing the Facebook Live.